How is everybody? I could almost talk about a VR, AR safety. You don't want to do this. You got to be very careful. Our stuff's so real. I actually broke my leg. But that is a whole nother story. If you want to see my other session, that'll be at 4 o'clock, VR, AR safety. So head to that. I want to give you a little bit of background. There's a specific thing I want to talk about, things that we're kind of doing. But I want to make this more of an educational thing, and kind of stuff that we've learned about, kind of going through this process, because VR, AR, everybody knows it's pretty new. It's kind of hard to get people to understand how to use this stuff. And a little bit background about the company. Our company name is Uncorporeal, or unpronounceable. It's very difficult to spell as well. But if you see on the image right there, we started out doing high-end volumetric human capture. So a lot of the team worked on Fast and the Furious. Our teams from Weta, Pixar. We worked on a lot of kind of immersive content. So we basically would set up very complicated camera arrays. We use computer vision technology, and we have a light field codec, and we would actually get photorealistic humans in full movement and put them in a virtual and augmented reality. However, our real goal is what we wanted to do is make it so that we can unlock the VR market. We wanted everybody to be able to create stuff in virtual and augmented reality. So it doesn't have to be full immersive human. You can just say, okay, I want to capture an environment. I want to take a picture, and I want it to have full 3D and people to walk into that, or it could be video. So we wanted to create a whole flexible architecture. We have a whole portfolio of algorithms that allow people to do whatever they wanted to do. So what we do is we experimented with a lot of things. And we started with one technology, and then we were allowed to kind of let that unfold to many applications. So like I said, we started with hollow humans, which is the hardest thing for us to do. Then we could do, using computer vision and photogrammetry, we had objects, doing full immersive video, and then what we would call full immersive photography. And that's what I want to focus on today. So this is what we call, there should be sound in this, but this is what we're calling holographic photography. And this wasn't something that we really thought about initially. It's kind of more of an experiment. So as you can see, what we're doing out there is we're taking multiple pictures and creating a complete 3D model. And you could actually walk into this picture. Now, with normal photogrammetry, you would need hundreds or thousands of pictures. We've got this down for this one is about 30 to 40. We use off-the-shelf DSLR cameras. We can even use mobile phone cameras for this. And so we kind of put this out there. We did a post about this on Medium, blog post. We weren't really sure where it was going to go. And so a lot of people started approaching us, and then we started talking to the lab at the Rockwell Group. And the Rockwell Group is a pretty innovative design architectural firm. And the background of the team, none of us knew anything about architecture, honestly. We kind of just stumbled into this. And we had some initial talks, and we showed them our technology, and they said, hey, this is pretty interesting. Can we use this to create very immersive public spaces? And the reason the Rockwell Group wanted to do this, some of the things that they've designed, the W hotels, Nobu, if you guys had lots of money, go to fancy Japanese restaurants, you would know that. I don't have that kind of budget right now because I'm doing a startup. But also the Newark Airport, and they've also done some really cool things. They've won Tony Awards for designing theater spaces, right? So we're like, hey, this is pretty cool. We can kind of figure out where the technology goes with this. So they wanted to create a really immersive hotel experience. And we're like, okay, we've never done anything like this before. Let's give it a shot. So why did they pick us? What we were able to offer that was different from everyone else is that they really needed a higher level of realism. So what's great, our team, my co-founder, he was the head of R&D for Weta for a while, so, he worked on, Lord of the Rings. We have people from Pixar, and so quality was a big thing for us. And they wanted to make sure, it's not going to be reality and virtual reality unless it feels real. So that was very important. The other thing is, because we were trying to make sure the barriers were lowered, our overall philosophy is, how do we get people creating stuff in virtual reality? Because the stuff is hard, right? So this is where I talked about, we spent a lot of time altering our algorithms to get it down. It's you can go out, if you take 5 pictures with a normal camera, off-the-shelf DSLR, mobile phone camera, you can pretty much create a full 3-dimensional image that you could walk through, which no one has been able to do before as far as we know. And then, like I said, we wanted people to experiment with any type of hardware. So once we lowered all those barriers, we kind of figured out, like, can we get the right information? And then just from that, just from visual data, so we don't use depth sensors or anything else, we can get a depth map from that information, and basically people can feel like, this is a real experience. They're really actually in this hotel room. And that really helped with, them kind of getting more customers to say, okay, we want to upgrade. We want to try a different experience there. We want to go to a different location because this actually feels like a really, really cool experience. But we learned a lot of things about this is that, there still needs to be a lot of experimentation. No one knows what the killer app is, right? And so part of our philosophy is, like, we want to put things out there. We're engaging with a lot of people because we're trying to figure out what are the things people want from a creation side and also from an experience side. And a lot of the other things you guys know, but this is the kind of the stuff out of our control. What we're focusing on is lowering the barriers, right? The friction. If we make it easy, use any type of hardware, being able to capture anything, we're going to get more people in the door. But we need to see more headsets out there. And to really feel like things are immersive, you need to have positional tracking. In the meantime, since we really, like I said, we were doing high-end entertainment before, and to really experience our stuff, you needed to have a high-end headset, an HMD like a Vive or an Oculus Rift. But what we also know, which all of you guys probably know before we did, is that you got to have an experience across every possible device. So, we've kind of changed our philosophy. It's like step into immersion is kind of how we think about it. So we made it available on mobile. You have some type of understanding of like the spaces that you're kind of walking into. But then you put mobile VR in, then when you have positional tracking, it'll actually feel like you're there. And then when you're using a high-end HMD, you're like, am I there, or I'm in virtual reality? I mean, that's kind of the steps that we're taking because you've got to get people to kind of slowly get accustomed to what the end goal is. And another thing we kind of started to understand through this process is that there's not that much of a B2C market right now in terms of creation. So our customers are more B2B and B2B2C in this case. So we're about, we're getting like 80–90% of it. I'm just honest. I mean, there's still stuff we have to do to refine the product. But what we did is we created a web-based editor we call HoloPhoto Editor. And that actually lets people go in and change certain things because some things are still difficult to capture, right? When you have dark areas, the lighting doesn't really come out the way you want. So sky is difficult. So we're able to go and kind of mark those areas. And the other thing what's interesting is that people do want to manipulate their reality, right? So we made it so you could go in there, like if you want to change the color of the tables. I mean, it starts with a real capture, but people do want to modify that experience. So we'll probably get to the point we're going to add machine learning, so like the output can get to a point where if you're not that sophisticated and you want to spend the time, right when you capture something, it's usable as is. But in this case, we had to find like kind of a happy medium, with some human intervention to make sure the things that we capture are usable right away. So what did we learn? I use this image right here about the Legos because Legos kind of come in this way where like you have the prepackaged ones, so you kind of know what to build ahead of time. And then there's stuff that's a little bit free-forming, where if you have more experience and more creativity, you can build the stuff that you want. So we wanted to at least have some type of package for people to work with. So that is where, like, when you get a first output, like, it's kind of 90% there, but it's the last 10% that's really hard. So if you guys have also probably worked with different clients, like I said, some of them want to, like, change certain things. They want to actually have things that are even more immersive. They want to be able to walk through the hotel room, right? So then we would have to take different pictures from different angles. So that's a lot of the customer feedback, and we're working a lot in terms of refining the product. And that last 10% is, if you kind of flipped it, that's where we're spending 90% of our time, actually. And the other thing that we learned is that, when you're doing something that's really immersive, one thing that we kind of thought about is, like, people kind of mix up 360 and VR, right? Normal 360 out there is kind of stereoscopic, and it's not really VR, but in a lot of ways, for it to be really immersive, it does have to be 360. We kind of learned that with a lot of customer tests, is like nobody wants that reality to be broken. So even if they're not looking in the back, like that slight chance they will, and if it's not actually there, like the depth and the feel of like being there, then they actually lose that sense of reality. So it was actually important in the end. And then the other thing we noticed is that depth really matters. So half of what we do is adding that depth with that limited visual information. So for people to say, okay, that chair is about this distance and there, really makes that a completely different immersive experience. I mean, the value there is probably half or more of them feeling that they're in real virtual reality or augmented reality. The last 2 points, if you're more kind of on the photogrammetry or you're a photographer, I think these were kind of interesting points for us that we kind of discovered over time to make it easier is that, you know, you can never have too much lighting in most cases. I mean, things when you're shooting interiors, like I said, is like very, very hard. You have like white walls, things without texture, things that we're solving over time, but you want to make sure things are actually visible, you know, so that we can process that and capture it. And the other thing that was interesting is like high dynamic range. So if you're a photographer and you go out and shoot things, like you're a real estate photographer, you need to capture things in high dynamic range, right? And when people do normal 360 capture, they don't really do that because you're going to have to take multiple shots. So I'll give you one specific example. Like if you're capturing a place that's very well lit, right? You want to capture like, you know, twice, at least twice or more, right? Like you guys have your, let me give a better example. You have your cell phones, right? And you know when you put on HDR, you get like another picture, right? But it kind of gets, it's an averaged out. But what happens is you lose a lot of detail. So what we did with our software is that we actually can sense what is the right picture. Like, so you only have to take one picture. When you're on auto exposure, our software figures out which is the right picture immediately. So then we can also add that. So that allows anybody to potentially capture anything. So these are kind of our main learnings. If there's any other questions about what we learned, feel free to ask them. I mean, what we're kind of thinking about right now is what other kind of use cases can we solve? One of the things when I showed the holophoto editor is that we actually added scale. Like we're having some discussions with construction folks. It's like, well, if I can go on a site and I can just use a regular camera and I can capture all of this really quickly and upload to the cloud, I get 3D information, I can walk in that picture, then you could add scale. You know, can I help that? Can that help me in terms of building new buildings? And those are some of the conversations we're having right now, like with the Rockwell Group, because this went really well. They actually want us to roll out more with this hotel chain that we work with. But they're also thinking about things about, okay, I want to build a building, and I want to do the design before I'm actually building things. You know, can I take a few shots, keep adding on things, adding layers of CG as other types of reality capture to kind of create that model of design, you know, further out. So those things we're kind of looking at. If you guys have any interesting questions that can kind of help us think through the product, or you actually want to try us out, like, you know, maybe there's a project we can work together on so we can improve what we're doing. Feel free to contact me, Kul, which is easier to spell, K-U-L, at Uncorporeal.com. And, you know, we're located in the city, San Francisco. You can come see us. If you want to see some builds, we can send you stuff. So, you know, look forward to hearing from you. Sure.
Any questions?
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. If you have a question that comes up later, feel free to find me. I'm going to be hobbling around, so I really can't escape.